Hey, what's up everybody, and how are you doing this afternoon? Alrighty then. Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 things that ruin Total Drama All-Stars. Um, these are mostly opinions, and if you have any points that you'd like to make, just feel free to comment down below because obviously I would like to know what you guys think in terms of not only my rankings but your own personal ones. And if you have any thing that you want to say is generally flat out wrong, Lord knows that we could all use a reason to actually like All Stars. So please, find a flaw in my logic so we can find just something to cling to for this season. Anyway, there's no specific criteria like in some of my rankings that I have to go over before we get right into the list. So we're just going to jump right into it. Please enjoy. So we're going to go into number 10, which is Lindsay's character was inconsistently written throughout the show and kind of hit rock bottom in this season where she seemed to reach a new low of stupidity. Now, Lindsay peaked in Total Drama Action, which is season 2. Although her character did go through some growth between Island and Action. So between those two parts, Lindsay's actually written very well, except for her elimination in Action, which we might get to in a future video, but we won't touch up on this one because this one's All Stars. But getting into World Tour, Lindsay just kind of seemed to reset. Where she didn't seem completely dumbed down, she did seem to lose a lot of the charm that she had in Action. And then you get to Action where, not Action, All Stars, where poor Lindsay, they found a new low for her. She didn't even vote on the card, people. She put a mark on her own face. That is just, yeah. I'm not gonna get too much more into this one because hashtag justice for Lindsay has been a thing in Total Drama ever since Lindsay's been eliminated the first time. So All Stars didn't really give in terms of just how outright they diminished the character. No one did I don't know if I want to say better or worse. Nobody ruined Lindsay better than All Stars. Anyways, we're gonna get into the number 9 spot, which is having a codependent character like Sierra without her other half, aka being Cody. Actually made little to no sense. If Sierra had been written to be more standalone-ish, either during World Tour or in All Stars, it would have been alright, but they still played her as a very codependent character despite Cody not being in the season, which it just led to a convoluted, plot point. They really either could have done without Sierra, which is my preference, or they could have brought Cody in instead of Cameron, which would have worked for me as well, because Cody and Sierra did make it far enough in the game to be considered All-Stars, and whereas so did Cameron, he just didn't do a whole lot. He mostly got carried by other players. That being said, we're going to move into the number 8 spot, which is, although the romance between Mike and Zoe was interesting, I guess, it wasn't so engaging that it was worth 2 seasons of build up. You cannot tell me the whole, will they, won't they build up with Mike and Zoe was worth 2 seasons. You know, some characters did actually have, you know, multiple seasons worth of content to work with, like, for instance, Joe and Lightning. Although I'm not a big fan of it, and we'll get into it later, the love triangle still was technically like a plot point. You know, there were like love stories that deserved more seasons than this one, which it should have been capped off at the end of its own season, or at the beginning of this one. To me, having them both back, and having them both go very far and back-to-back seasons just led to way too much Mike and Zoe screen time, and it didn't have any actual substance or payoff. They really could have done with giving some more characters some screen time, or bringing in some characters that didn't get some screen time from past seasons. I know it's called All Stars, but which we're going to move on to number 7, because some of these plot points tie together, and I'm not trying to talk too much about one bulletin before I get into it. The number 7 thing is, this season is full of random missed opportunities. I'm not even going to try to hit all of them or even most of them, because that would be taking few. As previously mentioned, the rivalry or possible romance between Lightning and Joe, whatever their actual like endgame relationship, and it was also not capitalizing on the fact that Duncan recognized Mike. It just seemed like a really big missed opportunity. And then yeah, there's so much unexplored potential that they put the groundwork out there for and just didn't execute. And like I said, I could go on and on and on about things that they missed, but that would not only take all day, but it would probably hit into some of my other bulletins, and we're gonna save those for when they come. So we're gonna move on to number 6, which is, all things considered, they should have, you know, used some continuity in this season for real. I've already talked about some of the points that will, you know, we'll just kind of gloss over some of them, but how inconsistently Lindsay is written is like, it would have done with some continuity to have her, like, I don't know, retain some intelligence or strategy from her action days. You know, I already talked about Duncan and his relationship with Mike or Mal or whatever. It just kind of seemed to disappear, so there's not even really any continuity in the season. There's also Courtney's case, which that's gonna be for later, and the fact that the island is just back. You know, they didn't really give any context there. Also, the fact that the island sinks at the end was just really stupid. So yeah, these might be little nitpicks because it's a cartoon or whatever, but honestly, some consistent writing could have really helped put the plot in a better direction and really made this season more tolerable, rather than giving just a bunch of random, it kind of seems like it came out of nowhere points. So we're going to move on to number 5, which is, with this being a season of, you know, a combination of the old and new cast, I, for one, was really hoping for a finale with an original cast member. Um, if we was gonna go, since Courtney made it that far in the game, I'm not the biggest Courtney fan, but I'm not a Courtney hater either. And having a Courtney, finale would not have been so bad, even if you did give the win to somebody like Mike or Zoe or whatever. I still would have liked to see Courtney in the finale, or at least um, you know, some member of the original cast. Instead, what we got was a friendship finale with Mike and Zoe, and it just really felt cheap. It packed very little punch. There was no intensity. It didn't really matter who came out on top because, they was going to become boyfriend and girlfriend, and they were probably going to split the money, and the finale just didn't really own up to the hype. Once again, it's just a missed opportunity in this season, which, again, that's why I said I didn't want to touch up on too many more missed opportunities because they can tie into other bulletins. Moving into number 4, we've got a majority of the a majority of the characters in All Stars are not, in fact, what I would consider All Stars. A handful of them didn't even manage to make it very far in their respective games, like Sam. And then the winners of the first 2 seasons, being Owen and Beth, didn't even come for All Stars, which is like, what? You're gonna have an All Star season without the winners? I'm not a big Beth fan by any means. I really think that the finale should have been Harold and Lindsay, and a lot of other people seem to agree with that opinion. But it is what it is. Beth won, so being the winner, she should have been brought back for All Stars. But instead, they decided to not do that. Not to mention, there were fan favorites who could have been brought back. People that really, might not count as all-stars, but people would have loved to see them anyway. And that's Harold, Lashana, Brick, Dawn, and that's just to name a few that people would really love to see return, and they still have stories that have so much potential that could be, really explored upon. The final gripe I'm going to give about the casts, which I have a lot of them, so be thankful that I'm trying to keep it a little short, is that most of the stories that were going on were messy at best. Zoe and Mike really could have been resolved quickly. The love triangle is just a topic for later. Sierra's Cody obsession was just unnecessary for the season. Don't even get me started on Mal. It was just a lot of what went on in this season didn't really have to. The whole thing could have been done with different characters and possibly done better. But as promised, we're going to move on to number 3 and talk about the love triangle. Now, this one might be a bit of a controversy. Some of you might think that this was one of the saving graces of the season, but I, for one, think that it got too convoluted. Now, here's the thing about it. I thought it was unnecessary in World Tour, but the show is called Total Drama. Emphasis on drama. So I get it. And, you gotta do what you gotta do. And it wasn't nearly as bad in that season because they kind of worked it in to where, from the right viewpoint, you could say any of the characters were in the right. At the end of, season 1, and mostly through action, Courtney and Duncan's relationship is pretty rocky and pretty hit or miss. Not to mention, you can just see it's a little unhealthy. And so the fact that Duncan ends up going after somebody else, it kind of makes sense. Also, Courtney wasn't really in the wrong because she got cheated on, and Gwen, you could honestly say that she was just, being a girl. She was trying to invest in love and wasn't really thinking about the consequences. I would really say, from any viewpoint, you could say these characters aren't inherently, like, bad. But then you go into All Stars, and it tries to way overcomplicate things. It leaves, Duncan missing Courtney and clearly, like, more of a bad guy in this situation because he's trying to play both fields. Gwen is single and lost her friendship with Courtney, lost whatever friendship she had with Duncan, and it's unlikely that her and Trent are gonna get back together because of the mess that they made in Action. So honestly, it was a very sad conclusion to Gwen's character. And as for Courtney, again, I'm just gonna say that for later, because her character was destroyed in a single episode. You all know what episode I'm talking about. Yeah. So we're gonna move into number 2, which is, remember what I said about Mal earlier? Well, yeah, we're gonna get started on Mal now. Too much of this season revolves around this dude. He wasn't a strategist like Heather or Alejandro. He wasn't, terribly interesting. Like, they tried to make Duncan and Scott and Courtney and Gwen. And he wasn't really as good as, like, Sabotage as Scott was in his original season. So honestly, he just seems like an edgy brat who likes breaking things and making some cheap dialogue. And honestly, I would say this is some of the worst dialogue in the series pre-Pockettail. Because, I mean, God, Pockettail was a mess. But again, we're not here to talk about Pockettail. This is All Stars. So on top of that, half of the season seems to take place inside Mike's mind, which really takes the reality out of the reality show. And the whole changing during the full moon thing just didn't make sense. And if I can remember correctly, unlike the other personalities, Mal didn't really seem to have too much of, like, a trigger that summoned him. He kind of came and went as he pleased, which, again, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Ultimately, this whole thing was unnecessary and really didn't have to last a whole season. Having this guy as the series main bad guy was one of the worst decisions that they made for this series. But I digress. There is one decision that has topped this. So what can it be? What is worse than Mal? What could possibly be worse than the cringy, utter bullshit that this guy just made this season? But Sam didn't win? No, I'm kidding, of course. I actually just have 3 words for you. Then they aren't the 3 words that I just said. Moody, Monday. This is hands down the worst episode in Total Drama history. It's by far worse than anything that has appeared in this 9 seasons worth of content that this series has made. And it is completely and utter garbage. This is the whole, like, chart thing that, it just plays into the whole lack of continuity thing that I mentioned earlier. It was never once showed before, and it might have worked, but okay, let's be honest, it wouldn't have worked, but it might have been better if Courtney had been shown to have the chart earlier on in the series, even just a couple episodes earlier. But it just kind of came out of nowhere and seemed like a easy way to like destroy all of the, you know, it just single-handedly derailed and destroyed all the development that they had done for Courtney this season, and sent her off with a bowl of bird poop covered ice cream that she tried to feast on, trying to save her, like, you know, self. And then there's also the, you know, Fred incident and the little baby creature that we all want to forget because, yeah, those are just to name a few things in this one episode that just really sucked and made this whole season crap. And it's hard to believe that one episode can destroy a whole season, but it really can. It can do a lot of damage, and Moody Monday is by far like that episode. So, in conclusion, do I think that these are all of the reasons that this season failed? No. But I do think that these are the main contributors. As a fan of Total Drama, it kind of makes me sad that this season had so much potential on paper, but absolutely nothing in practice. Excuse me. I'm not sure if I'd actually want them to actually try for Total Drama All-Stars again because of, you know, how this turned out. But if they do, they need to pick who they bring back strategically. Considering that they've got the reboot now, I imagine some of those characters will come back. And let's face it, Priya has run her course in the reboot. She's had 2 seasons where she made it far in the game. Both seasons she ate up like half the dialogue. Like, I like the character, but I'm also kind of sick of the character. We need some more time for other characters. Nichelle and Damien have also are on the opposite side of that you know, spectrum though. They had so much potential to do great things, but they got voted out before they really could do anything. Now, I'm talking about Nichelle season 2 primarily, as she didn't really do much in season 1. My boy Damien had potential in both seasons. It got utilized a little bit too late in season 1, and then of course, in season 2, they both got screwed in season 2. Yeah, more than just those two have things that they have going for them that they could bring back. I just wanted to say that those two are my primary pick. Did something like an all-star season again, then you really could do something like this without bringing back the whole cast and making it just kind of, I don't know, overplayed out. There are some stories that are just, they're done. Since I would say Raj has been overdone. She won a season. You don't really need another Priya season. Millie's just kind of been drifting around. Bring them back, but if not, then they really don't have anything going on that could really like pull them back. Yeah, it's just some things to think about. Anyways, so that is it. That was more or less just kind of a conclusion. If you agreed with some of the facts and points that I brought up, and you want to bring up more that you feel like I missed, then go ahead and bring it up in the comment section. I find it very unlikely that I get enough views for it, but if I get enough views and comments somehow, some way, and you guys give me 10 more like very good independent facts that ruined this season, I would do a part 2, because believe me, I do not think that, you know, these are the only 10 reasons that this season really like didn't make it. Also, if you want to see top 10 things that ruined Pocketail Island, that might come with enough views. For now though, that's it. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. It really means a lot to me, and I tried to keep it a little bit shorter than I usually do. I tried to keep a lot of the rambling out, except in this maybe last part. But thank you so much. Hasta la pasta. See you later. Have a fantastic afternoon. Now I'm gonna sign off and probably play some Red Dead. That is not what I meant to do, or that. I'm not doing